Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome and greetings from Erie, Colorado. Welcome to my wood shop. That's my shop behind me there. It's great to have all of you here on my bi-weekly Tool Talk live stream. Oh, we've got our friend Andrew from England County, Durham. He's from Scotland. I don't know where England County must be in Scotland. And Lowell, great to see you. Lee, oh, so many people. I love to have my friends show up here. Woodturning Tool Store, that's Todd Raines, and he's a good friend. Um, yeah, and Steve, I'm glad to see you're making the fancy box. I just love it. I like to inspire people. And yeah, let's see. We have a bunch of friends here that yes, David Perez, good to see you. Sunny Oregon, yes. Well, it's not sunny here, but at least it's fairly warm. Michael, Dr. Bob, saying greetings to Todd. And he sent me one too, but these messages just come in and come in. And I'm just going to say thank you all for joining. If I don't recognize you exactly, Roger, hello. Rat Pick? Oh, I thought it was going to be Roger. See, they come in so fast, I can't keep my clicking fingers going. Great to see y'all here. And I don't know why Roger's an angry woodturner, but we all have our emotions. And good to see y'all. Oh, Roy is here. Oh, yes. Arlington, Texas, good place to be, I guess. I think Texas would be a pretty good place to be. But Erie, Colorado is a great place to be. And I do these live streams every 2 weeks. My next one is going to be on April 27th. That's 2 weeks from today. And varying topics, of course. If you have an idea for something you'd like to see from me, please let me know. You can get a, let's see if this will do it. You can get not that one, but that one. That one? Yeah. You can get a live link or a direct link to these live streams to view it on StreamYard if you subscribe to my channel, and you'll also get updates about when exactly it is. I'll send something out a couple days before. So yeah, subscribe to my newsletter and I'll let you know all of what's going on. We'll start off things here with a somewhat of a wood turning calendar of events. Yeah, so my friend Todd Raines also does a bi-weekly live stream. His are on Friday at 2:30 Central and on alternating weeks to me. So those of you who are following either or both of us, you see me one week and then Todd the next. And we both love to have you come and hang out with us for a little while. So yeah, you can see Todd next week. And he did a really fun one last week. And last Saturday, I did something really fun. I did this IRD, that's an online class on this fancy inlay box. And here is the box. This is what the one I made in the class looked like. And I go through how to make this, including some really good drawings and step-by-step stuff so you can make this yourself. A little opal stone in the lid, nice undercut shape. And I usually show you the tools I like to use for my projects, signed on the bottom there. But I also show you what other tools you could use if you don't have exactly what I've got, and some of the compromises you might have to make. So that's part of doing any project is managing your tools and materials and your project. This one has 2 inlays in it, and the outer inlay ring there is the same piece of wood that the foot is made from. The foot comes out of the center of the outer inlay. So this was a really fun project and a beautiful little box. And I'm just pleased as anything with that one. So you can actually still get to watch the video if you sign up here on my website. You can still get to watch the video when it comes out, and the video will be out in um, a few days. I'm working on it. It takes a long time to edit a video and get it all uploaded and everything. So I appreciate your patience on that. Um, okay, here's a good question. How can it be the same piece of wood if it's in two different places? Well, it's the same piece of wood, same blank, but the middle of the blank is the foot and the outer part of the blank is the inlay. So I know that was kind of obscure to say it that way, but it's made out of the same blank, might be a better way to say it. Yep. So it's not one piece of wood, two places at the same time. Please type in your questions for me. Whatever platform you're on, I'll see them. And I would love to have your questions about wood turning and yeah, about boxes or about whatever. But I've got kind of an agenda for today that's maybe a little bit different. I want to talk about what Todd and a bunch of our friends did. Uh, was that 2 weeks ago? No, it was a week and a half ago, April 1st and 2nd. Vendor Showcase. That's myself, Joe Fleming, Steve Worcester, John Jordan. Well, more on that in a minute. Todd Raines and Lyle Jameson. We are all Vendor Showcase, and we do these shows twice a year. This one in the spring here, we just lost our good friend and colleague and teammate John Jordan not that long ago, and we did a tribute to John at the Vendor Showcase. So what we did was we all made hollow vessels. John's known for his hollow vessels, and uh, we did vessels not necessarily in the mini demos at the Vendor Showcase. Some of us just made a piece on our own and did something else for a demo. It varied a little bit. Todd did this piece here, and we auctioned off these vessels. This is very much inspired by a John Jordan style. He would do that kind of petals or peaks on the rim on his vessels, and this is a close to John Jordan kind of a shape. So we're doing stuff that's inspired by John, and that's Todd's piece. We auctioned off these pieces and individually this time, so different people got the different pieces. I got this one of Todd's, and it's a beautiful little piece, very small, just perfect size for me. This is Lyle Jameson's piece out of cherry burl. Man, what a piece of wood. And this is kind of a John Jordan-ish shape. So, here we are all making holoforms to honor our friend. And sometimes we get it exactly like what John would do, and sometimes less so. This is Joe Fleming's piece, carob wood from California, very much close to a John Jordan shape. I think he nailed, if we were trying to copy John, I think he nailed it the best of anyone. Steve Worcester thought we were doing eggs, and he did a really nice video demo on doing this resin egg, and I got this one too. This is my piece here, and it's a jar. It's based on a John Jordan piece, and I'll show you here in a little bit about that. This is the piece itself right here. It's fairly small. You can see in relation to my hand, and I did a black finish because John's piece had a graphite finish. Black on the inside too. What I'm going to show you today is I'm going to talk about the finishing process that I used on this piece. This is made out of ash, and I'm not going to do the turning today, but I'm going to show the finish. Oh, and David got Lyle's piece. Man, is that a gorgeous piece. Yeah, you did well there. Louisville. Yes, I'll be there. And so will Lyle Jameson of Vendor Showcase, and Joe Fleming and I will be sharing an end cap booth. So we'll have lots of room, and it'll be really fun. Yeah. So come to Louisville as soon as you can. Oh, and how did I do the beads? I did them with a pyramid tool, a point tool. And I guess you could call it freehand because I didn't use a beading tool. And here was my plan here was I didn't want the beads all the same. I was trying to get bigger ones at the bottom, getting smaller and smaller as they went up. And as with anything, I kind of need to do that again to really nail the more accurate gradual progression of the beads. But what you do see is the beads are not all the same throughout. Um, John Fisher made a comment here about, and I've lost it already, scrolled on up there, about a piece of wood being like Schrodinger's cat, both alive and dead at the same time. And that was what that was in reference to. Yeah, so I was trying to do something kind of like John's, and uh, check it out how it went. Uh, Here is my piece. It's a picture of my piece. It's that exact piece that I made. And that one I actually did not make in the demo, although I had a demo piece that I worked on because I showed that in the mini demos I did. You see, the way Vendor Showcase works is we all, 5 of us, have short demos that we do both days. So you can see all of us do something. And sometimes we do recorded video like Steve did, where you can get more work done. And sometimes, like me, I did aspects of this project in 2 segments. Anyway, so here's the piece I was copying. This is John's piece. And let me get my little banner out of there for now, because you don't want it hiding everything. Okay. As you can see here, I didn't really quite nail the shape. And I'm sort of laughing at myself here because I was intending to get John's shape, not the exact coloring, and definitely I didn't want the beads the same. I just wanted to try this progression bead thing instead of doing the large textured beads like John did. But you know, it just goes to show that copying is not all that easy. I ended up with a nice shape, but it's not exactly John's shape. So back to the drawing board if I want to make another one of these, but I don't. This is a tribute to John Jordan, our good friend, and we all made something that we were inspired to make to remember John. And Joe had a really nice story about his because he used a piece of wood that John actually gave him. And uh, that was a really good one. He went through a whole story. I'm not going to tell the whole story here. Let's see. So how did I tint or ebonize the color on the wood? Well, actually, I didn't do that at Vendor Showcase. I just said whoever wins the piece in the auction gets to decide whether they want it to be black or oil finish clear to show the ash grain. And the buyer the auction winner wanted it black. So here's the black. And I'm going to show you that today, how I did the black. And just to go over that again, we had an auction in the chat, kind of informal thing, and we each got to bid on which piece we wanted. I ended up with 2 of them. I got the resin egg by Steve and the little, he calls it Decaying Peaks, the hollow form by Todd Raines. So some nice, fun little pieces to add to my collection and also my memories. So if you like things like this, come to Vendor Showcase. I believe, let's see. No, I didn't put the date in here. I might have it over here. No, I don't have any way to put Vendor Showcase up on anything except I can tell you, go to my website and sign up for my list and you will get a notification. It's going to be in October. I believe it's the 7th and 8th. And Todd, if you have anything on that, you could post it in the comments. Oh, speaking of Todd, I mentioned about Todd's Woodturning Tool Store live streams, and he'll be on next Friday. What am I doing here? All the way back to the beginning here. And here is all things wood turning. He usually does a cool little graphic for every show that he does, which is fun. And you can go to woodturningtoolstore.com and find Todd and sign up for his newsletter and get a notification about his live streams. So this is all really fun, and it's free, and it's open to everyone. Uh, so is ash the normal, or is black the normal color of ash after it catches fire? And that would have been, come to think of it, I know you're trying to make a joke, John, but I'm going to turn it around on you. That would be a way to blacken it. Was I could have scorched it with a torch, but no, that's not what I did. I'm using dye. And yes, originally we were going to auction the pieces off as a collection. And we've done that in the past, but then we had a couple of people say, well, I really don't have room in my house for 5 pieces, and I just would like particularly one of them. And we decided that, yeah, I got my eye on one of them, and somebody else has got their eye on another one. And so, to give everyone a chance to own one of these pieces, we decided at the very last minute to do them all separately. So, yeah, sorry, Dean, that is what we're doing. And it was auction, not suction. And who is this? Somebody making a joke about this. Suction them off. Yeah, right. Under vacuum. Exactly. Um, so, yes, keep the questions coming and the jokes too. They're fun. Some people on different platforms don't get all of your jokes, but always good. And let's see where I am. I'm going to talk about this finish that I'm doing. And meanwhile, please, if you have a question for me, put it in the chat on whatever platform you're in, and I will do my best to answer. I'll be here for another maybe 45 minutes. And oh, wasn't meant to be a joke? Huh. Well, then I, in 2 ways, didn't get it, because I thought you meant suction, like, I don't know, something else. But auction and suction are easily done wrong on a keyboard. Okay, here we are. Thank you very much, Todd. I didn't get this on there, but Vendor Showcase is scheduled for October 7th and 8th, 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern, and you'll see all 5 of us each day. And it's a Zoom meeting, so you can have your cameras and mics if you want. And okay, what were the auction prices? Well, I can't really remember. They ranged from 200 to, I think, 450. So they were all fairly reasonable prices for the pieces. And what we did was the money went to John Jordan's family, which is mainly his wife Vicky, and she gets to decide whether she wants to use it for something in her business or something else. She's taking over John's, or continuing on John's tool business, or if she would like to donate it to their favorite charity, it's up to Vicky. And we'll keep you posted on that. Ah, yes, Black India ink. Now that's another way to do it. I did not use India ink, though I could have. And if I do this again, maybe I will. That's definitely a way to do it. And if you've never bid on a piece in our vendor showcase auctions, it's really pretty informal. Like if you said you wanted Steve's piece and you wanted to bid $100, you just put in the chat, Steve, $100. And then so on. Then someone else comes in there and says, Steve, 150, etc. A question about boiling unstable fruit wood before turning. And fruit wood I don't have experience with, but I have heard of boiling working for many, many things, and including probably fruit wood. But I have most experience with it with Madrone, and I haven't boiled it myself. I've bought it that way, but they say it's after it reaches a rolling boil, the piece is totally submerged, and you boil it for an hour per inch of thickness. So if you have a 1 inch thick rough out, I guess you'd boil it for an hour. But after it reaches a full rolling boil at full temperature, which in my altitude, full boiling temperature is like 204 F. So yeah, that's why I get other people to do it. Madrone is one that I don't know that you'd call it unstable exactly. What I would call it is it changes a lot between wet and dry. As the cellular moisture leaves the wood, it distorts and it shrinks and all kinds of stuff like that. So where do I source my burls? My favorite for maple burl, like I made this box out of, and let me get over here and show you that box again, because this is a gorgeous little box. The body of the box is maple burl from Oregon, and I get it from a lady named Mardina Blaney. I can't really post a link here because I can't type that easily in this format, but I do have a box links page that is one of the notes for most of my box classes, like this fancy inlay box. Amboina burl you can get from the exotic wood sellers, and the outer ring there is bloodwood, which again, places like West Penn Hardwoods or Gilmer Woods or Cook Woods, those kind of places. I wanted on that box, I wanted to have not just burl. I wanted the two kinds of burl to be separated by a piece of monocolor wood, and that's the bloodwood. Okay, thank you, Valerie. Boil it till it sinks. Yeah, I have always heard that you like put a rock in the bowl and let it make it sink. So, yeah, the secret to boiling is getting some kind of a pot big enough to put enough pieces of wood in that it's worth doing all this, and then some sort of a heat source to get it up to boiling. And I would not necessarily do it on the kitchen stove, but I did boil some stuff one time, and I had a hot plate that I put outside, and just a great big pot that I got at a thrift store. So I've heard people do it with a turkey fryer or turkey cooker. That's a great big water thing. Anyway, if you've got some ideas about how to boil wood, please put them in the chat like Valerie did. We'd all like to see them. And let me get Todd's thing off of there. Another thing I wanted to mention is that I do these free sharing and Q&A sessions once a month at 2 p.m. Eastern, same time that this session started. And if you subscribe to my oh, I did something I didn't plan on. Subscribe to my list. You'll find out all about that. I'll be sending out the link to the sharing session. And that one, the next one is on April 22nd, which is about a week and a half from now. Yeah, and here's another comment about the black thing. Leather dye is aniline dye, and black aniline dye is, as far as I've heard, very nicely color fast and a good thing to use. So yeah, that's very close to the way I'm going to be doing it. And the rock we're on the subject of boiling again. The rock is to hold the piece down until it won't come floating back up again. Look at this idea: a metal garbage can and a stock tank heater. Thank you very much. Valerie's obviously done some boiling. Yeah, and so ebonizing stain using steel wool and white vinegar, there's another way to make things black. It ends up with what probably would have been a nicer black than my black that I used. Different look, of course. That ebonizing is a little bit brownish, I think, of a black, which is a nice, more earthy wood-like shade of black. So yeah, that's another way to do it. Boiling removes the bark. Well, that's a good thing. Maybe I should boil some of my box elder and elm that I get locally here sometimes. All right, so let's get to something done here. I want to show you how I'm doing my coloring, and I'll get that out of the way. You can always subscribe, and I think I will get this out of the way so we have the full thing with no distractions. You can always email me, and just to throw this out there, that's my email address. I do answer my emails, so sometimes it takes me a little while, and I'm always free with advice and opinions. Yeah, for what they're worth. Okay, so here is the stuff that I'm using. That was good. How about here? Uh, it's trans tint dye, and I'm going to start this by putting on a pair of gloves, and I'll get out the things I need. Put on some gloves, and I've got a piece to dye, and I've got some trans tint, and I'm going to put it on with a brush. And I'm going to say, first of all, always, always, I wear gloves doing any kind of dye or finishing. I always used to tell myself, oh, I'll be neat about it. I won't spill anything. And I've had stuff on my hands enough time that I don't believe that anymore. Uh, so, yeah, Black India ink, another thing, messy. Here's a difference. This is trans tint. It's an old bottle. It doesn't have the label on it anymore. And this is the stuff here, the trans tint dye. It's a concentrate, and the concentrate is intended or recommended that it be thinned with either denatured alcohol or with water. I thin it with denatured alcohol, but for this project, I'm going to do it full strength because I did actually a little test on a another piece to see how it would go. And when you use the diluted dye, trans tint dye mixed with, I usually mix it with alcohol, it soaks in, as does the concentrate. And when they soak in to the wood, they soak in deeper into the end grain than the side grain. And remember that every one of these beads, the top of the bead is side grain, and the bottom of the bead, the kind of slope down in the groove there, is end grain. The end of the piece is end grain, and the bottom of the piece is end grain. So what I'm getting at here is when I diluted it, what I found was that I didn't get a really even black like I wanted. India ink is a pigmented, not a dye. It's, I don't know what you'd call it. It's ink. It's very black. It doesn't let the grain show through, and it doesn't soak in as much. So it kind of puts a heavier coat on the wood. And I think it looks very good because it doesn't, you can work it a little more, you buff it out and stuff, and it doesn't tend to be an uneven color. It tends to be very, very consistent. So yeah, another way to do it. Why did I do it this way? I just chose this way. It's not like I'm saying this is the best way or the only way or anything like that. So where did I buy the trans tint? My local woodcraft store happens to carry it. You can also get it from the manufacturer, Homestead Finishing Products, from somewhere in Nebraska or someplace like that. But looks like Todd's found it at Woodcraft also, and Woodcraft is available as a store franchise, and they're all over the country, the U.S. If you're in Canada, I think there is a place to buy it in Canada, so I've heard. On the other side of the pond, I do not know. So you can order this online too. Woodcraft sells online, as does Homestead Finishing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a brush, and this is a disposable brush. I don't dispose them though. I reuse them. And I have a black brush and a purple brush and a blue brush. And I just, every time I use black, I get the brush out and I never even clean it or anything. I'm going to put some dye concentrate on there and start with the inside. And before I do the dye, I am going to want the piece to be, you can kind of see I'm getting there. I'm going to want the piece to be completely sanded, but not oiled or finished in any way, because I want the dye concentrate to soak in to the wood. So more on boiling here. It breaks the cells that hold the moisture, so that, and after you boil it, you got to dry it. And that means that what usually happens with wood as it dries is it's got this distortion because the cells change shape. I believe this is what happens as the wood dries, as the cellular moisture gets evaporated out. And so with the boiling rupturing the cell walls, you get more even cell drying. And so here what I'm doing is just a very tedious little process here, and trying to get black on the entire inside. Now, just to clarify, this is not a finish I do all the time. This was quite a new experiment for me. So I had some pieces of ash that I tested it on, because I didn't want to just start out on my piece that someone had already paid for, and I already sent the money to Vicky, and I didn't want it to be a disaster. So I practiced to see if I liked the results, and I learned a few things about mostly the top coating, but I also learned, first of all, that with the dye, I wanted to use the concentrate straight instead of using it diluted like I usually do. Now I'll do the outside, and I'm just going to slather the dye all over it. And usually what I do is I put a paper towel in my hand so that I don't end up with just stuff everywhere. And here's what I'll do. And I'm also, you kind of have a three-handed job here. I'm also going to, after I just slather a lot of this dye concentrate on here, I will be wiping the excess off. Might make sense for me to have put this dye into a container that I could dip the brush into. I'm sure if I did this often, I would have done that. Okay, dye covering the whole piece, and now I'm just going to wipe it off. Good question here. Do I do the inside black because I want to, or because I want to keep the same tension on the inside as outside? Two reasons for that. I like the look of a black inside, and I often will make my pieces black on the inside, even if they're another color on the outside, just because the black hole of the disappearing, or the interior of the piece is just like nothingness, and the black hole in the universe. So I kind of like that look, is a big part of it. But in this case, I also was concerned that if I was going to, for instance, try to leave the inside as natural wood, I'd have a pretty good chance of getting some black on the inside accidentally. And so really, I'm kind of being lazy here. If I do both inside and outside, I'm more likely to not have mistakes happen. But yeah, so there we are. And I just wiped off any standing dye. I might even take my fingernail and try to get the dye out from between the beads. And this is going to take a little while to dry. After the dye is dry, I'm going to put a little bit of CA just on the bottom there. And you can see how open the pores are in this ash. This one is not sanded on the bottom like the finished piece is. And the very bottom where I'm going to sign my name, I want it to be sealed up so that when I go to fill the engraving, it won't get the engraving filler all in the pores of the wood. Hopefully, that's my plan. I may decide after testing it that I don't want to have the engraving filler, and I'll just engrave it and leave the engraving on the black. But I want to fill the grain, so I'll use CA glue, and this is the one I used for this project. This Parfix 3408. It's a CA that's designed for finishing wood, and not that it matters in this particular case, but it dries a little slower. So theoretically, it would be something that you could do a larger piece with this because it doesn't just cure so instantly. So you get a smoother coat. Not that I care in this case, but it is a good quality, somewhat flexible CA that penetrates into the wood and gives a good finish in one coat. And here is the lid. This is my test lid. And I hope you can kind of see this on this lid, just to see how it would go. I put the dye on here, and then I put CA Parfix on this half and nothing at all on this half. And you can see how it has filled in the grain a little bit. Then for a top coat on these, on both the lid and the piece, I'm going to use this matte finish, matte sheen, clear spray can lacquer. And on this little piece right here, my test, I was checking to see how it was going to go. And the dye went on first, and then the CA, and then the lacquer. But I was wondering, well, how does that go? It's a little bit of talk in the chat here about this, the 3408. I don't know if it's called medical grade, but I will tell you how to find Parfix and all information about it. Go to Kirk Kapp, Kapp, Kapp's Creations with a K. He's on YouTube. He's got a bunch of YouTubes on how to use Parfix. If you know Mark Soleil, he also uses Parfix. So does Emiliano Archibald from Hawaii. And I wasn't aware of odor. I'll check it out here in a minute, because I will, as soon as we give that dye on the piece a little time to dry, and then I will put the CA on there. But I'm just telling you what I tested first. And the other side here, I put the lacquer on after the dye and then the CA. And you can see that the CA didn't have a chance to soak into the wood, and I apologize for this. Black does not do well on camera, but I wanted black because of John. So you can see how we've got CA on this half of the lid piece and dye with lacquer over it on this half, and the CA just beaded up on the surface, whereas on this side I have dye, CA on this half here, and then lacquer, and that worked really well. I like the look of that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put Parfix on just the signature area. And what it did was it filled the growth rings a little bit. The growth rings being closer, they are closer on half of that piece. So that was, if you're trying to make a joke, John, it fell flat on me again. But yeah, now we've got our Parfix here. And I'm going to use a little piece of a paper towel, fold it up, and I will have already sanded. I didn't on this one. And then put the dye concentrate on, let it dry for a reasonable amount of time for the alcohol to evaporate. And I'll just take a little drop of CA and smear it around only on the area that I want CA, and I don't want CA on everywhere. And then I'll just kind of wipe off the excess, and depending on whether I think I need to, I will spray some accelerator. And I don't have a Parfix brand of accelerator, so I'm using the Star Bond one, Star Bond or Glue Boost. Those are both good quality accelerators that don't make the CA blush. So a little bit of that. Uh-oh, you caught me out about not wearing gloves. I was thinking, oh, I'm going to save some time here. And guess what? I got little bits of black on me because even though the dye was supposed to be dry, it's not dry enough. So at least I didn't get huge stains on me, but yep, should have had gloves on. And there are some lessons we have to learn over and over and over again. So that there is going to be ready for lacquer. And I'm going to give it an hour at least before I spray the lacquer on. Not wanting to actually spray lacquer here. I'm not going to do the actual spraying. What I'm going to do is show you a video of how it went. And I'll talk about the setup I have here and how that wasn't the one. That's the one. How it relates to reality. I did this at my lathe because I am trying to take a video of it, and all the cameras are at the lathe. Typically, though, what I would do is I've got an open cardboard box, just a box that was ready for recycling. And I have one side open just to keep the dust from drifting around and maybe the wind blowing, because I'm going to do this out on my driveway. I don't like to breathe that stuff. And I am also going to use a respirator of the type that's got the carbon filters, and it's also got a pre-filter on it over the carbon filters. This is a mask for organic vapors is what they call it. Your typical dust mask will not filter out the chemicals of lacquer. So it'll filter the particulates out, but not the solvents. So I wear that organic vapor mask so that I do filter out the particles. And I've got a little turntable on there with the piece on top of it. I set this up for the camera. So that other little base thing I have in there, I wouldn't necessarily need that. I just did it to get things up where the camera was. Let's see. I can show you my apparatus here for doing all of that. I'll go here. I've got a turntable. It's just a piece of wood on this is a Lazy Susan bearing. I buy them at my hardware store, and that will allow me to turn the piece while I'm spraying so that I don't have to touch the piece. And then I have a dowel. Maybe we can see that better over here. A dowel, and I put some masking tape around it so that it would be closer to the size of the footprint on the inside of the vessel. And I drilled a hole in a piece of wood. And the purpose of this is to let that, because the dowel is not going to stand up too easily. It's going to be likely to fall over. This allows the dowel to stand up. And I've got all of that in here with my piece on there. And to start with here, I don't have the dowel in because the first thing I'm doing, you can't tell that's the opening there because it's a black hole. But I'm going to spray the opening. And here we are. I'll just spray across the opening, and I can turn the Lazy Susan bearing so that I can spray the other side. This is rattle can lacquer here. And now I've got the piece on the dowel. Let me show you how that went. I'll go out here. The masking tape wad will fit through the opening, and it'll let the bottom of the piece rest on top of that dowel. Now, could I have done it the other way around and just put it on top of a dowel? Yeah, probably. But can you see this? It's a little more likely to move around. Oh, and here's a good question, John. Am I trying to get lacquer on the inside? No, I am doing something you're not supposed to do in woodworking. I'm not going to finish the inside at all, except for with the die. Now, I could finish the inside, but spray is really not the way to do that, because trying to get spray on the inside of something like this, it's just really not going to happen. To do a good spray job, you have to have the spray can or spray gun at 8 to 12 inches away from your piece, and you want to spray, and you'll see me do this in the video. You'll want to keep the spray moving, and here we do this here. I'm going to start with doing the bottom of the piece with a couple of sprays, and I start the spray off the piece. Push the trigger while it's not aimed at the piece, and then I move the spray evenly down the piece and let off the trigger when I'm off the piece, so that there's never a dwelling of the spray on the piece. And that's come on now. We need to go back a little bit here. Back a little more. Okay. So I did this last spray, and that got lacquer on the outside of the piece. Remember, I already did the top, the rim of the piece. And some lacquer will get on the inside, but not enough to make a difference. If I wanted to put something on the inside, I would get a little foam brush and use a wipe-on finish, as Dave is suggesting. Exactly what I would do. Maybe shellac is a good wipe-on finish. Maybe a liquid lacquer. But here's something to think about. When you finish the inside of a vessel, there's very little airflow inside there, like none. And whatever finish you put in there is going to stink forever. So a water-based finish, that's a good choice because they typically don't have the kind of solvents that stink. Shellac is a reasonable choice because shellac doesn't smell as bad as some of them. Yeah, so I could spray the inside until there's a puddle of it and roll it around. That would be a similar technique to a wipe-on finish, except that then I could use the same product that I used on the outside by spraying some until there was a puddle of it and then getting it to smear all the way around. I probably, rather than just letting it drain with lacquer because it'll puddle right around the opening, and I would probably get in there and let it drain for a couple seconds before it flashes off, and then wipe it out with a paper towel, just sticking the paper towel down inside. But I would do that absolutely before I sprayed the outside, because once I do the outside, if I have any glitches or oopses on the stuff that I'm putting on the inside getting onto the outside or onto my fingers or anything like that, then it's harder to clean it up if I've already finished the outside, unless I'm really, really careful. So if I now get pangs of guilt about not finishing the inside and decide I'm going to finish the inside of my finished piece before I send it out, well, I will be just really careful. But I would really better off do the inside first and then the outside. So on the outside, I did the whole thing, turning it around, and I'm going to do 2 coats. And what you see here, this is flat matte finish lacquer, but it's shiny when you put it on. It turns matte as it dries. So there's when it first went on, and here is the finished piece. So you can see that it has turned into matte finish. Why matte finish? I thought it would look better on here, and it's kind of more similar to that graphite finish that John used on his piece. So matter of taste only about that. So for the lid, where are we? Here. That's the outside. So for the lid, I'm going to put it on, this is the inside of the lid. I put it on a little waste block with a hole in it left from being a jam chuck. And I'm spraying at the side of it so that I get some finish on the whole shape of the inside of the lid. I'll do the same on the outside, on the top of the lid also. And that's this with this little knob on it, spraying coming from the side here, or a glancing blow so that I get finish in the crevice below the knob, as well as getting finish on the top of it and getting some finish on the rim also. So that aim was kind of a glancing blow aim. And on this side, you saw me just do the bottom side so that I get lacquer on that, the tenon that fits into the vessel. That was what I did. So black gesso. I have not tried it, but I've heard about it. And I'm thinking, if I wanted to fill the grain, like particularly there on the bottom of the piece, I believe black gesso is thick enough bodied that it would fill the grain and be easy to sand. So I could have filled all of the ash grain, and that would be a thing to do. I didn't on this particular one. So all of that being done, there's one more thing to do on this piece, and that is I've as I often do, planned on putting a gemstone inside. And is that as close as we can get? Go back over here and here. So let me get a little closer. And oh, now we're going to have to focus. Okay, then. Let me take care of that. We will focus right here. There we are, like magic. Okay, so I've got a little gemstone in an earring setting. I didn't need a post like I have on this setting. And what I did was I bought a faceted stone and a little earring setting called a snap set, and they just snap together. And I prepped the lid with a hole that'll fit that setting. And then I drilled a little hole for the post as well. And I now can press that in. what I want to do for that is get some glue, and I'm not going to use CA. Often I'll use epoxy, but really, as far as glue goes, this is Type Bond. And all the glue is doing is creating a little bit of friction, because the hole is the hole for the setting is the right size. And oh, and I also did a little bit of um, polishing with some Abralon before I glue this in. Just a little bit of glue on the post and press it in. And now the glue will dry, and it won't really bond all that well to the metal post and the wood, but it'll provide enough friction that you'll have a hard time pulling it out again. So I'll set this aside now and let it dry a little bit. And my piece is all done. Here's the real one. All done. What kind of a um, fit do I want on the lid? Well, I decided I didn't want the kind of pop fit that you had to use a lot of force to get the lid off, but I do want a little bit of softness to the fit so that it's not just sloppy and loose. And I didn't want it too tight because the new owner of the piece might live in a humid climate, and I live in a really dry climate. So a lot of things will tighten up when they get to their destination if I size them perfectly for Colorado. So there's my piece all done. And I can put it over here. And we'll get a picture of it here. That is the actual piece in a picture. And we'll put it up here. No, here. Huh. Well, it's not going into the overlay. Okay. You can also find a picture of this piece in the slide that I had of it, which is right here, covering up my face. And let's get rid of that. Let's go over show you all the pieces that we did at the vendor showcase again. Okay, so I'm really proud of what we did and pleased with it, and it feels really good to do something, anything, even though it's not a big deal thing, but just to take some time to honor our friend John. And here are the pieces we did at vendor showcase. Well, not in the vendor showcase demo, but for vendor showcase to be auctioned off to benefit John Jordan's family. Here's Todd's piece that's called Decaying Peaks, and it's carved on the rim a lot like John does his pieces. This is Lyle's piece, which is a sort of a similar John Jordan-ish form. Gorgeous cherry burl, really nice piece. I think this one is a little bigger. I'm not sure how big it is, but Decaying Peaks is about 2.5 inches in diameter or so, and I don't know how big that one is. And then this is a very John Jordan-like piece. I think it's about 6 inches in diameter. Carob Wood by Joe Fleming. A Resin Egg by Steve Worcester, not a hollow form, but Steve didn't get the memo, so he did a very nice job on this, and I got this one too. And this is mine. It's my rendition of John's graphite jar, he called it. And this is John's piece here, the one I copied. As you can see, I didn't do the greatest copying job. So just goes to show you how hard copying really is. So about the gem. Can I trust it gluing on top of a wooden ring? Yes, I've done this for years, and I'm not just gluing the stone to the wood is the thing. Let's get back I'll get rid of that there. Yeah, get rid of that. Let's get back over here and I'll show you again what the gem looks like as best as I can. We'll get all the way in, zoomed in. I could zoom in closer, or I could, if I had it, show you the slide. But this is an earring setting with a post, and the faceted stone snaps into it. Once the stone is snapped in there, you'd have to pry the prongs apart to get it out. So then when I glue it in to the lid, wrong lid. Where? Oh, it's over here. I put it over there on the display stand. When I glue it into the lid, the when I glue it into the lid, the cylindrical part of the setting right here goes into a hole which contains it. The post has some glue on it, keeping it from being able to be pulled out. So this is actually fairly secure, and I'm not relying on the glue to do anything. Even without glue, this setting will stay in the hole, and you have kind of a job getting it to pry out. So I do have confidence with that. And what is this? The lid, to fit on the lids can be either French or Russian. French are Toulouse-Lautrec, and Russians are Popov. That's a good one. I love it. I love it. Yeah. And thank you very much, Ron. I'll be back in 2 weeks. I do these sessions every 2 weeks. And my next one is going to be April 27th. That's 2 weeks from today. This is about how long I usually go, an hour. And I start at 2 p.m. Eastern, which is 1 p.m. Central, and noon Mountain. That's me. And 11 Pacific, and I'm not sure what time it is everywhere else in the world, but UTC, which you can figure it out, 1800 UTC. So I will be back in 2 weeks. And if you've got one last question, I could do it, but I'm going to leave you now with a nice piece that I made to honor my friend John, and it was bought by someone who is going to get a nice little memory. So I hope you got something out of this, and let me know what you'd like to see next time. I'm thinking I might have a guest at some point, and we'll see what to do. Okay, so here's a good question. Am I sending out the video for the fancy inlay box? Yes. I have to edit the video. I also have a bunch of backlog of orders to get done. So I've got a busy week this week, and I had a busier one last week, and the one before that with vendor showcase. So, I get things done when I can get them done. I should have the video out by Saturday. That's only a couple days. And the reason you got a second link for the Opal Tower box is because I did a new handout for the Opal Tower box based on the graphics that I used during the program. And so I put it together as kind of a visual and written step by step of the project. And yes, it has the video link in the email as well. But that's why I sent you that email, was because I wanted to tell everyone that I had this new graphic thing done. But you will get an email for the fancy inlay box very soon. Yes, and that will be a similar format. So sorry for the confusion there. All right, folks, I'm going to say good night, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good, whatever it is, make it good. I will talk to you in 2 weeks. Over and out.